What's up, guys? Welcome to the Behind the Golf Brand podcast. This week, I have my good friend Patrick Keegan from Field Day Sporting Good Co. I hope I said that right, or just we call it Field Day here. They make some really, really, really nice apparel. And the reason why I have Patrick on the show today is not only talking about Field Day, but how he got to starting his own brand, because he's worked for pretty much the most iconic, really golf brands out there in the last 10 years. And it's really fascinating. I think it'd be cool to hear his story and hear how these brands grew. And you're just gonna have a really good time today. So, Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. Excited to be here.
So, where are you located?
I was thinking about interrupting your intro, but I didn't.
Should have. I would have said something. I don't really know.
I'm an hour southwest of Chicago. We're in our hometown in Morris, Illinois. My wife and I both grew up here. Um, just it's a it's a really cool place. Sanctuary
Is
kind
it
of
like is it
place.
farmy out? Is it farmland out there still?
Yeah, it's very rural. We're the county seat of kind of rural Illinois here in the north central part of the state. So we've got a lot of taste and culture and cool things going on that a lot of the surrounding smaller towns are supporting. We're supporting the groceries and all the different things, but
Oh,
it's
like you're
definitely
the
small
big
town
town in
America.
the little town area, pretty much,
We're
right?
the big town, but we have, I think, 15,000 people in our town, so it's still pretty tiny. But we're an hour door
Oh,
to door
wow.
from the city, so that we still have access to civilization.
So, like, I grew up kind of near you a little bit. Like, I'm from the southwest suburbs, where my family is.
Hmm.
So, like, Oak Lawn, Palos Heights,
Yeah, we're the suburbs
Mokina,
of
that way.
that. We're the suburbs of that.
So yeah, you're further. You're just like another what, 30 minutes, probably 25 minutes southwest or
Yeah,
something. Right.
yeah, yep.
I love that area. I don't know. I haven't been back in like 10 years. My wife keep on saying we want to go back and bring our kids there and like do it, but like, and most of our family's still there, or my family's still there. And just getting
Yeah,
back there. I don't know. In the
it's awesome.
summertime, I have so many good memories, dude.
It's super wholesome here. There's just something about it. I've lived in New York. I lived on the West Coast. When you come back to Chicago, there's something about like the air here, even especially out where we're at. Like the air is sweet. It's got this just kind of
I know
like,
you're talking about.
yeah, wholesome feeling to it. I don't know.
Do
It's
they have
hard to
like all
explain.
those? When I was a kid, like my grandfather was a farmer out there too, and like he used to take us to like there always used to be these like roadside like stands, people selling their produce. Do they still do that? Is it all over the
Every
place still, or
Saturday
not
in our
anymore?
yeah, we have a
Really?
farmers market off the highway. Yeah,
I just remember that. I
and
remember
we're
buying
like a really
tomatoes, like these
Norwegian
really big
area.
ones.
We're a very Norwegian
Yeah.
area. So like Kringla, if you remember that, a lot of fruit and vegetables. We're cornfields all around us, but Norwegian baked goods and it's farmland for sure.
I love it. I love it, dude. I know exactly what you're talking about. And those summer nights are like in the 80s kinda, and there's like lightning bugs everywhere, and
Yep.
just like yeah, I don't know. I like it's very memorable to me. So I love that
Yeah, I
area.
mean, not
So
to jump
it's
the
just
gun, but
different.
like really, like everything we're doing is inspired by that kind of feeling, like that childhood feeling of what you're explaining, like the summer nights and the lightning bugs, like
Yeah,
the
of
Kevin
our
Arnold.
childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you're right. Yeah, not the sans
Post
technology childhood.
yeah, pre-2000, right? Like that kind
Yeah,
of childhood
yeah,
where
yeah,
you
yeah.
went outside at night and played till 10 o'clock at night because it was like still light out, right? In Illinois, at least. And yeah,
Yeah, yep.
I remember this.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
good
it's
old,
the
it's the
Kevin Arnold Wonder Years, good
Americana.
old days, small
Yeah,
town living
yeah.
for sure.
So, okay, so did you grew up there, you said, and then are you a golf pro?
I'm not a golf pro. Some days I wish I was a
Oh,
golf pro, but my dad was a golf pro in our hometown here at our little
he
little old club.
was that his job?
Yeah, he was the director of golf, golf pro to director of golf to basically running everything at our local club here that's been around for 100 years in Morris, called Morris Country Club.
Now, how far was that from where you lived? Like down the street?
Everything's 5 minutes here. I mean, that might be an exaggeration, but everything's 5 minutes. It's right down the street. 2
So
minutes
did
from home
you
for me.
so who taught you how to play golf? Your dad?
Yeah, I I developed the best part of my game for sure through my dad. We had some years, it's hard to grow up with your dad as your instructor or your dad as the person you have to listen to, especially when it's something that you love. Dad as a coach is not always the easiest. So he sent me to a few people. There's a few folks in the Chicagoland area that he trusted that he said, "Okay, I'm done having this argument. You got to go see Billy or John or whoever it was." So, uh, and then I smartened up and I listened to him and I got a lot better. So
Yeah, because you realized your dad knew who he was talking about,
he knew
right?
what he
You're
was
not
talking.
just
Yeah,
like your it's not just your
as it turned out.
dad, right? Like
I
it's
hope he does. I hope he doesn't watch this because I'm finally admitting it. But yes.
no, well, the thing is too is as you become a parent, you're just like shit, because like all you do the same
Mhm.
stuff, dude. Even though you try not to. I mean, you don't do it as bad, let's put it that way, but you're hardwired for that, like you've been
Well, the problem
conditioned.
is too is that he wasn't only like a great player himself and knew the golf swing, but he's a retailer. He was an old school golf pro, so he owned his own shop at the club, and
Wow.
so he's still telling me what to do. 30 years later, but
You're like, "Yeah, come on."
I do listen. I do listen. He's got some.
He's like, "You gotta buy those bell
Uh,
bottoms," and you're like, "No, no, 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 we're not doing that." He's like, "No, they're really are those still striped pants, because they look like the ones that Rodney
he stays
Dangerfield
out of that
wore."
part. He stays out of that part.
It's
He
probably
does.
where you got your eyes, right? You're like, "Oh yeah, I want a new fashion like that." Like
I'm trying
that
to get him
hat
to.
that
I'm trying to get him to wear Sans belt again. I'm trying to get him to ditch the belt and go modern, old school. But he's scared to do it when really that's what he grew up on. So, but
it's
yeah,
crazy.
no, he's more so like we have a bar in our store, so he ran the club and ordered inventory, obviously for the restaurant, for the golf course, like, and they really did everything. So,
Like he
uh,
literally ran everything. Like he's a GM. Like he did everything.
Morris Country Club is a really special place. Like, your hometown club is always like that for you, I think. But it was, incepted in 1924, so next year is their centennial, which is super cool. But it's a little far away from everything in Chicago to have like true prestige, and it's only 6,000 yards. So, it's a working class club, but it's really well maintained. The staff does an amazing job. They have for a really long time, and he was kind of part of turning it into what it turned into. I think over time, with help of a bunch of really tasteful members. So, um, because of that, though, they didn't have the opportunity to hire an assistant pro. They went through GMs a lot because they couldn't pay guys enough who really were great. So superintendent's the same. We got a lot of guys that came from Rich Harvest and an assistant role or something, or a local great club, and then we were a stepping stone to show what they could do, and then they went to Olympia Fields or to whatever the next thing was. So he just played a lot of he juggled a lot, I think, in between things and learned a little bit of all of the different pieces of the business. So now I'm learning that that's what you have to do when you own your own business, I guess. But he still steps in
Yeah.
and helps me order my beer for the store and stuff like that when I I need to be designing golf shirts and not running the bar part of the store, which I uh, decided was a good idea to do. So
Is he retired now?
he would tell you he's retired, but he teaches like 9-10 hours a day. So
Holy
he's slaving
crap.
away. My mom would love for him to hang it up, but
He'll never
he likes to
retire,
help. He
bro.
likes to help people. Yeah, he likes to help too much. So.
Dude, he'll be going crazy. Like seriously, like being stuck at home. When you went to golf course teaching. Yeah, right. Like, come
Yeah,
on.
he's good.
I'm
He's
getting
really
paid to be at the
good what he
golf
does. So he
course.
keeps, yeah, yep, and make his own
So
schedule. So everybody deserves to get to that
so
point, I think.
when so growing up, you probably got pretty good as a player, right? I'm assuming. Like,
Yeah,
were you
I
like
had some really
scratch or
good
what were
years.
you?
Yeah, I had a couple years where I was plus, but I just realized really like what it took to be that next level of good, and I had a college golf scholarship, but I decided whatever the fallback plan wasn't good enough to want to spend 4 years studying something that I didn't love. So I ended up going to fashion school and hanging it up. And I way more appreciate the game because I'm not competing. I think everybody that knows me and has played with me would agree that I I've won our club championship at our club, and I won an event here in Chicago called the Tournament of Champions, which is like the club champions event where all the club champions are invited from the CDGA region, and
That's cool.
um, I just had a good summer and I won that too. But I don't enjoy the stress of my life's stressful enough. I don't really need to stress out about something that I love. I'd way rather go out with like persimmon woods and a stroller and push my son and play 6 holes and fiddle around and screw around. So
So are you still plus, or what are you right now? What do you say?
I think my handicap probably says it, but I haven't posted a score in a very long time. Don't play me with that index. I
That's
I
some
won't play
bullshit
you.
about
That's for sure.
oh, like one time, like I remember, cause I'm like, I never really did my handicap till this last like year, and I think I got down. Right now I'm like a 16. I'm a 15 right now, right? I was a 24 last year, so it's like I'm going down fast.
Wow.
And then I played a tournament and it kicked my ass, right? And it posted all those scores. It was a hard ass course, and all of a sudden, like
Hmm.
the next thing you know, your handicap's up a little bit, right? Because you're like, what the hell, because you played
Yeah.
like, you know, however many rounds of
Well,
golf
with
and you
kids
did
too. I mean,
shitty.
if you go out and have 6, 7 good rounds in a couple weeks because you got to play a lot, or you went on a golf trip and you finally like got a little feel, and then you go home and you don't play for a month because you're dad, and then you go out and have to play to your handicap and something else. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's a hard reality.
So all right. So then, where did you go to fashion school at?
I went to the Illinois Institute of Art downtown Chicago.
That's cool. Did you live downtown?
I did not live downtown. I lived
Where'd
in
you live?
Wheaton, rented a little townhouse in Wheaton, and took the train in every day, which was really cool.
The
I was
Metro?
down the way from, yeah, yeah, Metro
Yeah.
West. So I went through, like not Oak Lawn, but I went through Oak Park. I went through Elmhurst,
I've been on that
that
road.
line.
I've been on that. Yeah. Does
Yeah.
that go by Naperville too? That same line, or is that
No,
farther north?
different line. I don't know enough about it, but I know it's not that
Uh,
line. But
yeah, I remember that.
it's the original track that would have gone to the gates of Chicago Golf Club. That's the Metro West line. So I feel like through osmosis, I was just like maybe doing the right thing, whether going to art school or trying to be part of golf in some capacity. So
So you went to art school, and then what made you want to go to art school or go to fashion school? Because I only know like a
um,
couple people that did that. I think it's cool.
yeah, I loved it. But it was only for one reason. And I was gonna design golf clothes. I was very much so the minority in fashion school of guys that were designing A, and B, anybody that would have wanted to design menswear. All my classmates were doing bridal and wanted to be on the runway.
Dresses and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I was different,
that's
and I think
cool.
that helped me probably get a job. But the only reason that I ended up there was to design golf clothing, and it all came from growing up in my dad's shop and having the access to product, probably, and being around it. But I'm just like any other '90s kid, I think, and from Chicago. Sneaker culture, and like as I got into high school, things like Hype Beast and High Snobiety and all these like fashion blogs and things that were covering culture and streetwear and sneakers and all these things. Not
Cool.
necessarily surrounding golf, but golf was happening with it too. Marty Hackle, like one of my total icons, and now a really good friend of mine. I talked to him on the phone last night, which is just so full circle, and I remind of it every time we talk. That, like, remember when I was chasing you around the PGA show, and trying to just have a conversation with guys like that, and now I'm getting to bounce ideas off of them about my line. But people like Marty and like Greg Montefort, who runs Golf Threads blog, though all of those things were just coming out when I was in high school. So I had access, I guess, to what was going on tour, what people were wearing, what was happening in the industry, and at the same time, I was helping my dad buy for his shop. So as I mean, a very interesting position to be in, I guess, as a 15 or 16-year-old kid. And the fact that I even had the interest in it versus what all my friends were spending their times doing was pretty unique, probably. But um, all those things, all those like media channels gave me and people gave me the opportunity to soak up that information and figure out that it's actually like an industry that I could be a part of. So that's why I decided to do it. I sat down with the admissions council at a little school here in Joliet called St. Francis University of St. Francis. It's a little private school with a great golf team, and they gave me a bag with my name on it, which was like it was like signing day, like we were talking in our chat before we got on here. I put the hat on, I signed my name, and then they wanted me to declare, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to study? Basically, like, what are you going to do the rest of your life? And it was a card, kind of like that, and it had 150 different things on it that I couldn't find myself doing ever. And I remember having a conversation with my mom that night, like, I don't know, maybe I'll be a teacher because I could teach golf. Maybe I do that, but I don't want to do any of this stuff, and I don't think I like golf enough to want to go play to
Become an
do any of
instructor.
this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had some serious soul searching to do, I think, and I went to the PGA Show, which I went to in a stroller, so I was always going, but I went with maybe like a little bit of a different thought process in mind that I needed to figure this out. And at the time, it was like the convergence or like the crux of the industry where things were changing and all these little brands were popping up, the coolest things ever from a standpoint of like what had been happening the 10 years prior. So like Travis Matthew and G4 and Linksole and Seamus, and there was a little brand which is not a little brand anymore called Links and Kings that was bought by Titleist, and um, I remember a brand called Tom Morris. That some things worked, some things didn't.
Yeah.
Jones was at the precipice of all of this.
Beginning.
They were
Yeah.
all brand new, and it was at the time that there were other really big brands in the market where like Ralph Lauren and RLX were super hot, and Luke Donald was world number one, and Puma had Ricky and Lexi Thompson, and they had a DJ and a slide into a ball pit in their PGA Show booth, and these things that like I wanted to just be a part of. Um, so, small niche purist brands that were finding a new area to kind of um, dive into, I think probably based on uh, some brands paving the way previously, like an Ashworth or something that became very big, and the industry changed, and it was like possible to bring that aesthetic back, and then kind of the really performance driven uh, tech pop culture brands that were bringing golf into the marketplace that might have not focused on golf previously. So I think it was just good timing for me, but that's totally the reason. I mean, long story short, but totally the reason that I decided to do it, that I thought, gosh, I want to be around this.
So when you decided to go to art school slash fashion school, like you'd already had experienced a lot of that with your dad, right? Like you've experienced, the apparel side of golf and seeing the style of golf and all that. Like that's what kind of motivated you to like actually go forward and be like, hey, this would be kind of cool to actually do this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a total foundation. And growing up, you think you want to be on the PGA Tour, and then you start to like really have to decide how you're going to spend your time. And yeah, I didn't realize it maybe at the time when I was at that age, but I definitely had some schooling in advance of making that decision. So, you know, he gave me the opportunity to crack into it, and the network to do it too, because I was able to go to the PGA Show, and instead of going and sitting down and saying we want to pre-book spring and we want these SKUs, I was able to say, oh, by the way, I'm in fashion school and this is my portfolio. Do you want to see some of my designs? I'd like to work for you someday. So
Which I think is like really smart and cool because I mean, that was always, I think what helped me in life too is when you show interest in what somebody else does and you like say, look, I really want to do this too. I would love to you know, and then they actually like they want to talk to you about it, right? Because they like I feel like that always works. It always works because
Well,
how
they
many
didn't
people
realize
think
that they
it's
were being
cool what they do? You know what I mean? Like,
they didn't realize that I was selling to them. Like, we were there to buy the line, and I ended up selling to them. But one of my stories with that, it's really cool. I ended up working for this guy for a lot later, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. But I went to the Ralph Lauren booth because I thought that their stuff was the best in the space, and I loved everything that I love. I modeled my golf swing after Luke Donald, so like he could do no wrong in my eyes, and obviously just class and taste and everything that that brand embodies. Um, I spent a ton of time in their booth. Just they were probably so annoyed that I was in the way because I just wanted to be around it because it was so cool. And a guy by the name of Charlie Schaefer was the designer, and I was just hanging around in the booth. And then eventually, throughout the week, we had an appointment with my local rep here in Illinois, who his name was Tracy Lick. He was a super nice guy to me. I used to shop in his garage. He'd sell me his old samples. Like those are some of the things that I did to get into this space, or at least surround myself with the industry. And so we had an appointment later in the week. He wanted to show us the line, and then he said, "Hey, you know what? I think Charlie's here. Would you like to meet him?" And I, of course, I have my iPad. I'm ready to like if I have a chance to show somebody that I would like to do this, I'm doing it. And you know, squeaky wheel kind of thing. And so
yeah,
he took us into this. We went through this kind of maze, and then through the booth and out of the booth, and through the show and out. And you've been to the Orange County Convention Center, so like one of these
it's
side
massive.
rooms, they're out
Yeah, on the side.
ridiculous. So
Yeah,
we're yeah, I'm 17 and I'm following this guy bobbing and weaving through golf pros in navy blue blazers and Nike Shocks, and we get out of the show and there's uh you know the concession stand, and off to the side of the concession stands are all these like really high end hospitality white rooms where they set up the actual selling rooms. So these big brands that have all this awesome buzz and the DJ in the booth that like so the reps can actually go sell and get some work done. So we got out there and we walked in, and Charlie is sitting at this table off to the side. And I don't know if you'd even know this story, but he's sitting off to the side. And another guy that I ended up working for later also is Spencer Bass, who was his assistant, was with him. And they were showing Ryder Cup product to Tom Watson. And I, it was like a, this is your life, you know, kind of moment. And um, Tracy's like, maybe now's not a good time. So we left and stood outside for a while. And then Tom left. And, you know, Tom Watson's like as timeless of a human as possible. And just, he's the consummate. So he walks out and gave a wave, and everybody was waiting to say hi or just like brush his shoulder. And so we went back in, and I got to meet Charlie's hand, and his whole design team was there. And I got to flip through my designs, and like those were the moments that I think that I realized that I could actually like that not only was there a job there, but that I was really different. I think in the whole sense that there weren't many
you
people that
are. Who
wanted to play
cared? They
college.
wanted to do that.
I
That
really
loved it.
wanted to
That
do
were
it.
like,
I
yeah,
really
like you
wanted to do it.
wanted to do that. It was like, oh, I'm gonna do that as a stepping stone to do something else. Like, no, that's what I want to do.
No, I really wanted
That's
to
it.
do it. Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, it was interesting. I was different, I think, because I played competitive golf. I wanted to be a competitive golfer, and then I really figured out what I wanted to do, and I was obsessed with it, like seriously obsessed with it.
It's
So
fucking crazy. So
yeah,
you, so you went to is fashion school 4 years? I don't know. Is that normal or is it
it
longer?
typically yeah it's an under. I mean, it's your undergrad. It's a bachelor's in arts, so it's a 4 years. I finished in three. I had some college credit through high school, and just
Save
fast
money,
tracked
why
it because
not? Right?
I
Yeah.
was not trying to spend time in school because I knew what I
You wanted
wanted
to
to
go
do, and I
work.
was not going to
Yeah, you
waste.
want to get
I was
yeah,
not
you
going
get
to
the piece of
waste time.
paper.
Yeah. And like I said, there was nobody in school that was like me. I mean, there were some really talented people, but nobody was um, doing what I wanted to do. So it was just hard to. I had a couple instructors that were very inspiring that I loved being around, but that was about it. And they knew like you got to go. And that I had a couple good friends that are doing cool things in the industry. Um, one of the girls actually wanted to design for Barbie, and now she's designing for FootJoy. So there are jobs in golf, but that is not what they would have wanted to do at the time when when we were there. So I was ready to move on.
So, do you think it would have been different if like you went to like LA art school? You know, like the LA fashion school, like because it's more West Coast or like or New York, you know, where or that's just like how it was back then, or is that how it still is too, where people
No,
are not wanting to do that. That makes sense.
I
You know what I mean?
think
Or being
that
in that environment.
my school, I wouldn't say was like the most acclaimed in its and it's like with my degree, like Parsons or some of these
Yeah.
downtown New York fashion schools are really, if you come out of there, like you can get a job at Fendi or
Yeah,
design
write your own ticket.
downs
Yeah.
for Vera Wang or whatever. And because they're really technical and they're extremely laser focused actually like in one area. Like we have a friend that's
Subset of yeah.
I have a really good friend that's a fabric developer and she's worked for Nike. And then I have another friend who's a textile engineer and she does things for Under Armour. But
That's so cool.
they're not like I came out of college and I just wanted to do it all. I think that there's some people that come out and they're like, I want to just make patterns, which patterns are the the template for how each piece of the garment gets cut out in fabric before it gets sewn so it fits a certain way. And I think that there's just a lot of different layers of how you could get involved in this. And those schools are very good for them. I got to, I don't want to spoil anything, I guess, before you continue to ask questions, but my first job was at Ralph Lauren. Um, Fast forward after our big conversation, I guess, of my intro into trying to show these people what I wanted to do. But when I got there, I met everybody, and every time I'd introduce myself, someone would say, "Oh, I studied poli sci at GW, and I studied finance at Duke." There was really no one other than the really technical people that were um, doing the most necessary parts of the design process that
Yeah. The
really
engineering side of it or
that
whatever it
went to
is, like
the
yeah.
scientific, like, true. Yeah. But
Because I mean, fashion's
design,
art, right? So it's like it's like, are you artistic or not? And do you have an eye for what you want to do?
and it's taste, I think, in a high level, like, if it's a taste level thing. So, whatever the concept you're trying to embody, whatever that is, um, yeah, it's a taste level, and it's trying to develop and tap into whatever that, like, it's these mood boards that everybody's coming out with on Instagram, these things that exist around the industry, and there's so many of them now, but there's so many people that are really good at it. And like anybody like that could be a designer or maybe a producer, a director in film or something along those lines. Like that industry, I think it's just having that picture in your head of what you want to create.
It's like making YouTube
So I think
videos.
I mean, you have a vision for it. It's totally vision. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever it is, I think whatever it is. So like if you, I don't know him. I don't know the inner workings. I don't know anything about the inside of this brand. But at Nike, if you watch documentaries about Tinker Hatfield or any of these guys, classically, I don't know if any of them were or needed to be trained on design, but they knew what they wanted to make. And, there's a lot of other people that really know what they're doing and how to help you see through that vision. But I think the first step is just trying to um, exploit
So
like
then how'd you
exactly
get
what
your
it is that
first
you're
job?
trying to
How'd you
do.
get the job at Ralph Lauren? What happened? Because you had networked earlier throughout your like before we were in college, or did you intern there, or how'd you get your first job?
I interned at Linksel. So in school, in the summer, I actually, this is kind of funny. So once again, network. I ended up through my dad making a contact with our local rep. Linksel had just came out, and they had all these great T-shirts. They had the Make Par Not War T-shirt. They had a bunch of clever stuff, and really a very very small amount of SKUs. They had a couple polos, and they had those great board walker shorts, the swim short hybrid, which is one of the first of their kind. And we asked the rep for a contact at Linksel if there was any possibility of working, somehow there. And I figured, without really knowing anything about it, that was probably a way to get my foot in the door. It was a smaller brand. I figured there were less steps to meeting somebody.
Yeah, corporate.
And but it was also a brand that I really like. It spoke to me. Everything about the story they were telling, it was really inspiring to me. So, without knowing anybody there, and the rep said, "Well, I can't say that, I actually can't say this because it's like sharing personal contact information, but it was like, yeah, his email is just
Blah
this
blah
at that,
blah.
this
Yeah.
at that. Like, just send him an email, see what he says." So I wrote John Ashworth an email, and some dorky kid like, "I really love you," and he wrote me back and said, "I love the idea of free help," and he wouldn't remember that either, but he did say that. And so I went and spent the summer there. My wife came with me, and she got an internship at another really cool little brand, and we loved it. We spent 2 months in San Diego, which felt like a long time at that time in your life. But we worked for John, and then I came back and spent uh, my senior year or junior year, which was my senior year, and then uh, I went to the PGA Show again. And this is when I really started to dig in, and I worked really hard to try to figure out really where I was going to end up. And Charlie had told me that I had a job if I wanted it, and we would figure it out at Ralph Lauren. And this was probably my third time meeting him. And they're really high efficiency business, and like so many different things happening and getting pulled a lot of different directions. So it took a long time to try to dial in, the job description, what it actually was, when I might be there. And I kind of lost touch with him for a little bit. And we I reached out to some people on LinkedIn. I tried to connect with as many people as I could at the company. And finally, I met with a couple people, and I got a call, or I got into contact with a couple people. One of them was her name was Sasha Kelly, and I had no idea who I was emailing because I was just trying to get in touch. And she was the SVP of men's design and women's collection on. It was a very long job title, and I had no idea what it meant because I was 17 or
Young.
18.
Yeah.
I was 20, 21. Yeah, 20. So, um, Sasha wrote me back so kindly and said, "Let me talk to Charlie." And I think at the time she was even above Charlie. So, uh, he finally reached out, and I didn't really know how I got in touch or who really, drove the point home that I wanted to get in touch with him, but he called me back one way or another. And we had a conversation, and he said, "This is how much we can pay you." And I said, Okay, let me get back to you." I said, "I've done some numbers, and I feel like this is what I need to make to move to New York and afford to live." And he said, "Patrick, either you're going to take it at this, rate, or someone else is going to
Sorry,
do that
Charlie.
job."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like,
He
oh
said somebody else
no.
is gonna do it. Like, everybody wants to work here. And he's like, and I'm not just saying that because
Yeah, he's not being a jerk. He's
he's
just
like,
telling
but
you the truth.
he's
Like,
like,
look,
it's Ralph
dude.
Lauren. It's like, legitimately, you're gonna do it for this, or someone else will. And I don't even think I hung up. I just said, "Okay, I'll do it." And I had the living room conversation with your dad when you're trying to get your first job and negotiating and trying to think about, okay, what do I need to make, or what if he says this, what if he says that. I was always really a planner. And I hung up, and he said, "So what did they say?" And I said, "Oh, I got the job." And he said, "What are you going to make?" And I said, "This amount." And he goes, "That's not enough." And I said what I said, and he goes, "Well, okay." So that's kind of how it all happened. So Sasha Kelly's another one. There's a lot of people out there that like really helped me get to where I got, but it was because I was just super freaking annoying. I mean, I just kept bugging everybody to try to figure out how to meet the person I needed to meet to be where I wanted to be. And I got a job offer at Linksole actually at the same time, but I'd spent some time at Linksole, and I just felt like I needed to see. I mean, it just Ralph Lauren, I felt like was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. And it was New York City. Like, it was, if you're gonna if you're gonna do it, that's
Yeah,
where you
yeah,
should.
because you're like, look, this is like a resume builder too. If I did it for like a year, it's like, oh, you were Ralph Lauren. It's like instant
I
credibility,
don't
right?
I don't know
Especially
if I ever felt like that. I don't think I ever. I
you're
was
too
just
young. But
solely.
looking now back, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, that might have been a
Oh,
smart idea.
I think so for
Now we
sure.
know the
But
world works. Yeah.
I was totally operating based on like passion and what I wanted to spend my time doing. Which I have a lot of young kids that work for me now, and I try to preach that as much as
For
I can.
free. Just kidding.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
just kidding.
yeah,
I'm totally
yeah,
kidding.
yes, slave labor. No, but it's expensive to pay people now. Um, whether college degrees or not, it's like Lululemon's paying
No.
$18 an hour. It's hard to
Holy
compete.
crap.
But yeah, I try to talk about it all the time, and we work towards just because I just felt like on accident I made all the right decisions just based on really trying to find what I loved, and I was lucky to I was
So
lucky
you
to
went to
luck
work at
out. I
Ralph
really
Lauren,
was.
and what happened? How long were you there?
I was at Polo so I worked in the golf and tennis division. I didn't realize I was taking a job in tennis, but it's part of that category for them. So I worked in golf and tennis, and I was part of the um, design of the Ryder Cup team gear and putting together some of the like presentation of how that stuff needed to be dressed and merchandised and sending product to tour players. And so my job there was called concept design, which was really cool. It was like a junior creative director job essentially. Like I got to follow around the most important people in the department who made all the decisions and like organize their magazines sometimes, but other times uh, you know, like really have some creative input. Whether it was listened to or not, I got to soak up a ton there. And I was there for a year. It felt like once again at that age, everything feels like an eternity, but it felt like a long time. And one day, Charlie just came to me and said, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'm gonna leave." He said, "I'm not sure when it's gonna happen, but I'm gonna leave." And um, Maureen Whitaker, who I was working for at the time, is really going to need somebody who can help in this department. There's going to be a little bit of hole to fill, and they're looking for great people. They're going to hire probably a couple more if it happens, but I think you'll be really great. And it wasn't like at all like a hey, come work for me, but I made it a hey, come work for me thing because I was like, oh, if you're going, I'm going because I just felt like Charlie at the time was, the reason that everything was happening the way that it was. He had great relationships with tour players and he was just a guy that I idolized and he was a role model of mine really quick when I was at that age. So um I told him if you're going, I'd love the opportunity to go and know what you're doing and what's happening next. And so yeah, a couple different things happened throughout the next 6 months, and it probably happened a little slower maybe than it was supposed to, but um, I didn't know anything about it until like a month before he was going to leave, and then he said, "Hey, I'm going, and this is what I'm going to do." And I said, "I'd like to do that. I think too." And so we talked about it a little bit, and I never thought that I'd have another chance to do a startup. At that age, it's like you see that on TV, like you see Silicon Valley,
I love
and
that show.
on yeah, and the things like that, like you think that
So damn funny.
there's just never gonna be I just thought that there was never gonna be another chance. Like this is like at 22 years old, this is like I have no risk. I had no kids. How was I ever gonna have another chance to do this and like go start something?
Never.
Fast forward, I worked for like a ton of
A
small
million
brands.
startups, but still, it's because your skill
Yeah.
set. Like,
Also I just think it's the way our industry works. There's a lot of room for new cool things. And I just happened to like be really lucky with timing for a bunch of different stuff. So Um, anyway, I had a
yeah,
ton of
but
hard
you're a little bit of a
conversations and
unicorn though, too, because like you've experienced it. Like, most people don't have one chance of experiencing that, right? Like they're at a startup and it got big. Well, that was their one chance, right? Or like they got a startup and it failed and they went back to doing something completely different. But like you got to see multiple startups and be part of those processes, so you can you get the best of each bit. You learn something, so you're like, okay, I know what needs to be done. Where I think, I mean, it's
Yeah,
really cool, dude. Honestly,
thank you. Yeah, no, I've been really lucky, and it's really just because I said yes to everything. I just and I'm such a people pleaser to a fault, that some things I probably got taken advantage of a little bit on in certain ways because I just want everybody to be happy so bad, like to the point that I just, ruin my own life because of it. But um, yeah, anytime there was something that seemed like it was I could better myself with, and it felt like a better fit for me, I was doing it. So, um, yeah,
that's cool. So then, what happened after? Like, who have you? I guess kind of like in the last 7 or 8 years, like name the brands that you've worked for, so people kind of understand like your experience, because it's gonna blow your mind, you guys.
yeah. So I left Ralph Lauren, and we were going to try to bring a brand called Chervo to the United States. They are a great Italian brand, with awesome fabrics, and we were going to try to put a little RLX flavor on that. And that didn't work out so well. And then with our backs against the wall and nothing kind of with in front of us, we started Grayson. So I was the first employee at Grayson with Charlie.
Crazy,
That's
freaking
I mean,
crazy.
I would say we left Ralph Lauren to start Grayson. That's probably what the story is now. That's what everybody would say. But we left and kind of had a tough go at it, and just kept chugging. And um, Grayson was named after Charlie's firstborn, so you can imagine the stress on not having a job for either of us, with a 1-year-old. So we did that, and then
You
I
know
had
what
a
that's
really
like.
hard
You have
time.
a 1-year-old. I mean, like, imagine that,
Yeah,
right? Now but you're even more hungry, I think, once you have the kids, because you're just like, I had to do this.
I got to do it. Yeah, yeah, and it's easier when it's something that you love to do. But yeah, it's crazy. I didn't have any idea at that time the level of stress. I thought I was stressed, but I had no idea. And yeah, so I was in New York and doing a reversed commute to Bedford Hills where Charlie lived, and I just did not like living in New York. Be- Rewind, with a dad who's a golf pro and a little fun, quiet club in our backyard to play all the time. New York's a really hard place to play golf unless you have a helicopter. So, and I didn't because I took that job I told you about for, before anybody else would take it at Ralph Lauren. So I didn't make very much. Um, so I left and moved back to Chicago. And then I ended up in Greensboro, North Carolina, short after, working for a company called Duckhead, for some guys that
For
worked at
them.
Ralph Lauren as well. And Duckhead invented khaki pants. They repurposed army tents, which was a fabric called duck canvas, and hence the name Duckhead. So really cool Americana, brand. And that was kind of my first introduction into a non-golf product, I guess. They were preppy enough to be golf, but it was really just menswear. And I started to kind of develop my taste, I guess, around, uh, just clothing, and not necessarily golf apparel. Um, and shortly after, based on some private equity decisions, I think their way of operating changed. A couple people left, a couple people were let go, and the company was very different. And I just kind of saw the writing on the wall. It looked like they were
Yeah.
going to sell it. They looked like they were going to sell it. So um, I had no idea what to do, and I called John Ashworth, and I just said, "Hey, John, we had talked a lot while I was doing everything that I had done, um, and this was in a really short amount of time. I mean, this was in like the series of 3 years, um, but we kept in really close contact. And I really, throughout the time I was at all those brands, I just kept kind of searching for what the Ashworth family had built because they built what they wanted to build with the people they wanted to build it with. So Link Soul was like, John and brother Hank and sister Mary and
Yeah.
sister JoJo and everybody involved. Dave, who is their CFO, was a brother-in-law, and I mean, there's just so many parts of it that they were just doing it exactly the way they wanted to do it, and that was really inspiring to me. So I I
Cool.
just admired them to no end. And I reached out to John and I said, "Hey, I don't know what to do. I see there's jobs in Carlsbad and Adidas. I know you know that, you know, more than you probably want to
World.
know.
Yeah.
Ashworth was sold to Adidas. So, but I'm like, there's jobs available. What should I not? What should I be thinking?" And I really wasn't looking for a job with him. I didn't even know that there was one available, but I was just looking for help. And he said, "Well, we need help." They were opening a store in Huntington Beach, and said, "We don't have anybody to run it and we don't have anybody to design it, and we'd love you to do both." And I said, "Well, my wife, Kristen, who has worked everywhere around, my job and followed me kind of throughout the country and things that I had to do," I said, like, she needs something and she needs her own thing. And I need to find her a job and I would like her to like what she's doing. And we can't really move until she figures that out. And he said, "Well, you can't do it alone." And little did he know, this entire time we'd worked at these other brands, we had this dream of opening our own store, and we were going to be able to open our own store for Link Soul and run it together. So it was kind of the perfect practice thing. So
Yeah, the trial
those are
run too for you,
yeah, a little
because now
bit,
you've opened
a little bit.
yeah, you've opened a store now, right? Like that's huge.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way at that time, but it was just once again another opportunity, and it was something that we were gonna. It was like with people that we loved for a brand that we believed in, and something
Where
that we
was that
really
at? Costa
like.
Mesa? Where was that
That
in
was in
California?
Huntington Beach.
Oh,
Yep,
nice.
and then we ended up opening 3 more, or 2 more, 3 total, 1 in Oceanside at their headquarters at the lab, and then 1 in, Alameda at a golf course called Carica Park. So those are all the big ones, and then I ended up moving home. Retail was amazing to us, and we watched everything that they had built with the people that they loved, but as we did it, we realized that the people that we loved happened to be in Chicago, and, both of our sets of parents are here in Morris, Illinois. Our grandparents were here. Just felt like life was here. So we wanted to do what they did and do it ourselves with our people. So I moved home, and it was still another 4 years at home before I was able to do what I wanted to do. But I scratched a lot of people's backs, and they scratched mine to be able to afford to do this now. So I guess quickly, I worked at Grayson again as a design director there for a handful more years, and helped with a lot of different things in retail development and product design. Um, I designed for True Linkswear. I designed for my one of my best friends in the world, Akbar Chisti at Seamus. I helped develop product for Fire Pit Collective. I designed product for Golfers Journal with Brendan. I worked for the 8 a.m. golf group. So I did all of Mira's merchandise. I've done Golf
Mira,
Magazine. I did, yeah,
golf.com.
which I like love
Yeah.
Mira. Um, Worked for golf.com. I worked for Jack Nicklaus, designed, Masters limited edition, this, that, and the other for a lot of people. And it's really cool because I got to wear a lot of different design hats, and everybody's brands are so different, and the ethos with what everybody was doing was so unique that I got to just like by the hour be like, okay, you know, True
New
Linkswear,
hat, new
and
brain. Yeah.
yeah, and
New
and they set the
style.
foundation. They set the foundation for what their aesthetic was. So I didn't have anything to do with that, but like I got to tap into what they were so cool about,
That's
and with.
cool.
So yeah, and not all product categories, but like a little here, a little there for a lot of different people, and yeah, just really enjoyed collaborating with all these folks for so long.
And I bet the way you're able to get these jobs is pretty much word of mouth, right? Like friends of yours or a brand you worked with, or it was like you went to when you were applying for a job, right? I would assume like almost like not a consultant role, but like they're your employee, but like you're also like, okay, we know we can do this because we need somebody like that
Yeah,
right
I've
now.
never I've never had to apply for a job, so that's pretty lucky. But yeah, and not so much word of mouth because everybody's a competitor. That's the interesting thing. Like everybody is trying to
Yeah,
carve out their little,
keep it to themselves.
yeah, a little bit. I mean, everybody's trying to, carve out their little niche, but um a lot of the a lot of it came from like, hey, I see you're in Chicago. A lot like if they knew me from Link Soul or they knew me from Ralph Lauren or they knew me from Grayson or anything else I was doing, it was like, what are you like, do you have a job? Do you need some help? And then I would just talk about what I was doing and that I, you know, could help and I had the capacity and I'd love to help. And then I ended up, you know, digging in for
more
different people.
experience and like and
Yeah.
learning something new and making something cool and you know that's so then when did you start field day? Like when did that actually start?
So Grayson was my biggest uh, workload, I guess I would say. Like I had a relationship where I had the capacity and ability to work for other brands while I worked for Grayson essentially full time. Um, so it was a lot of nights and weekends trying to help everybody else and do everything I was doing for others. But we had my son Ford on July 14th of 2021, so sevens, all sevens, 7/14/21, and we had a week off. And I got a call in the hospital that there was a store that might have an opportunity to uh, open up. And in my mind, it was like the perfect location. And I had known this for, the last 10 years kind of thing. Like if that ever came available, I want
What
on it.
was it before?
A lot of things. Growing up, it was a home goods store called Hanover Linens. It was a, bedding and furniture store. But
Yeah.
everything. I mean, so that this is a really cool. I mean, there's a ton of history here. Um, the my great great grandfather was a Heinz, HYNDS. That's my grandpa's last name, and the family that owns the building is the Heinz family, and not because of anything, because they're very distant relatives, but when the original building was built, it was the Heinz family general store, which is a family apparel store, and then it became the Heinz brothers footwear store, and all these really cool pieces of history. So actually, like I feel like it was a bit meant to be that I'm here. Um, might be a bit contrived to try to make sense of that, but I think it's pretty cool that ancestors in some capacity of mine once ran an apparel store here. Um,
Crazy. It's like
but
weird.
this it's
Like
really weird.
bro, like that's weird, right? I mean think about it.
It's really
Like
weird. Yeah, and I don't
it's
know
weird.
if
In a
it's a
good
meant to be
way,
kind of thing,
not
but I
bad.
don't
I
think
guess
these
it's
things happen.
cool.
I don't think these
No, it's
things
never.
happen by accident.
No,
So,
of course not.
um, so we're honored to be able to have the space, and it's a beautiful space, a 200-year-old space with original tin tile, and I gave Paul the walkthrough when we were chatting earlier. So, but before we took it over, it was a private bar. So it was like a members only bar, and small group of family friends. And in little towns like ours, I guess that can exist, um, because the rent's not too expensive and everybody can chip in and have their own little cool place. So they did a really good job of making this place feel like an old, 1920s kind of speakeasy brick and mortar bar. And I just got wind that, there might be a chance that it could come available. So I had a phone call with the landlord, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it. We're ready." And there was a neighboring space that wasn't available, but there's my wife. Uh, sorry. Um, so yeah, there's a neighboring space that was available, and it was an engineering firm. And I just said, "What about that one too? Is that one available?" And because I know that they own both spaces, and he said, "No, but let's just see what we can do." And now we're in it. So we have both, and um, yeah. So I had my son July 14th. I took a week off, and then I quit my job with Grayson a week later. Just like totally solely. I love my job at Grayson and the people that I was working with at the time, but I was it was just totally meant to be. All the cards were fallen into place with everything that I had always dreamt of. So, um, so we got the keys in September and opened
Last year?
November 1st of 2021. Sorry, super long
Oh
winded,
wow.
but yeah, November 1st of 2021.
But were you already designing apparel for it as you opened like a retail store? Like, did you have like a Shopify store or something before that, or you had nothing?
I had a Squarespace,
Oh,
which
you're really dating yourself. You must
you
use
may know is not very good at e-commerce based on what Shopify is able to do now. But I only had like 6 to 10 items for sale. So like even while I was at Link Soul, I was starting to toe into, like we said earlier, the mood board and the, you know, the e-com and social media kind of combo. And we made a couple things. We made a hat. We made a couple t-shirts. We did this, and I shipped it out of my basement for a long time. But it wasn't really a real business. It was just like this logo. And so the Field Day Boy, the Run Boy, and what it embodies kind of has turned into what the store is. And I didn't know in what order, but it's just all like everything I always pictured is happening all
Are
at
you on
once.
Shopify now?
I am, yeah.
Okay, I was making sure.
Thanks for yeah. Yeah,
Just like,
it's great.
you're not on like MySpace or anything, are you?
Shopify is great because you can link retail and e-com. So you can have
Really?
a
I didn't
physical
know that.
space and an e-com space. Yeah, e-com storefront. So our inventory is shared in both, which is nice.
That's awesome. That's actually really cool because then it's like you
Yeah.
just have your inventory. You know exactly what you have, and you can share it. So then, what made you come up with the Run Boy? Like, did you draw that? Did somebody else draw that? Did you find that? Like,
So
what's the deal with that?
I drew the first iteration.
Was it Stick Man? Just kidding.
Pretty much. No, it's a boy with a striped T-shirt. And it was inspired by like a newspaper clipping of actually a newsboy, and it was, Google Images. I found it somewhere, and I changed it a little bit enough to be a logo. And I found another brand in Japan, or it was actually a coffee shop that was like way too close to the logo that I had, and they definitely found the same clipping that I did, and they changed it to their way. But looking at them next to each other, you'd be like, "What are these guys doing?" So things evolve, and I just knew that I had to actually get in touch with somebody that could take my idea and turn it into what I wanted it to be. So I had a really good friend that was an amazing graphic designer and has his own little product company. And I just said, "Can you just put another eye on this? Because I cannot figure it out." And when you're drawing people and faces and bodies, it's really hard to get right. So we just worked through it for a couple months with somebody that I really appreciated and thought
That's
knew what he was
cool.
doing. And yeah, we ham and egged it and turned it into what it is now. So that's him, the Run Boy. That's our man.
So then, how long have you had Run Boy since you started the brand in the basement, or when you like started
Yeah, it
it?
was
Like,
really the first thing. It was really the first thing. Yeah. So Field Day
I
by
agree.
definition is.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree. I think like you can't be a brand without a real logo, right? What are you? If
Yeah.
not,
Well, I think that going back to like the hype beasts and the all those cultural things, design was also branding, and wanting to have the certain products and pieces that the best companies made. You wanted the logo, the polo pony. So
yeah,
I think it all started with that. But Field Day by definition is a day devoted. So I think that is to what, like, Merriam-Webster's dictionary, day devoted. And I think that's what to whatever it is that you love to do. I think third bullet point down, because there's the one, two, three. I think the third bullet point down is that it's like a day at play or something along those lines. So those two things kind of infused is kind of what I think our logo embodies, the Run Boy embodies.
So, what is your aesthetic? Like what is Field Day? Like how would you
I think it's a
describe that?
little it's evolving, but I think the the brand as a whole is very heritage athletic wear inspired. I think if you picture 1940s through 1960s, maybe into the 70s a little bit, um, this like good old days mentality and mid-century ideology of design. And that can go as far as like Americana and, an old soup can for a cool font, or Arnold Palmer in a golf product. So, from graphic t-shirts to all the different product categories that we're in now, I think, we're just touching on a lot of different things. But we love the Peanuts. We love, I love Charlie Brown. I love Norman Rockwell. I'm inspired by,
I love
those kind of
peanuts.
things. Wonder Years. Yeah. Honey Roasted.
So what is your favorite thing to design out of all the stuff that you have right now for Field Day and with golf? Like, is it the shirts? Is it the polos? What is it? Like, what do you love doing?
I think that it's a mix. I think that like inspiration hits you at different points, and you just have to do what it feels like work when you have to do it. So I think that when you have an idea, you just got to sit down and work on it. And I think that's the lucky thing about what I do in design, that I'm able to do that. But I have a lot of chores with the retail store that I have to do. So it's hard to have the energy and the capacity, quite honestly, to actually continue. And like after a long day in the store, like we have the tux rental business in our store for our community.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah. Who's
we
the
have
only one who
four
does
we
it?
have No, I'm not the only one, and I'm actually, like,
Oh,
very uninvolved, luckily, in a lot of it, because
yeah.
it's a kind of a high maintenance,
Oh,
business.
yeah.
There's a lot of babysitting on different things to make everything perfect, and I only have to jump in when I'm needed, which is really lucky. So I have a great, uh, an employee here named Vicky that handles kind of the day-to-day on tux fittings and picking things out, and,
So it's like field day is more than just like, I guess for people to understand, like you're your own brand, but like you also have your own retail space, which is like different. You know, it's not like just a store, right? Because you're telling me before when you gave me the tour, it's like you have
yeah.
a bar there and you have a barber shop and you have all this stuff inside the store.
Every step of the way kind of has been like a stepping stone to figuring out how I was gonna afford to create my own brand, quite honestly. And the store is a platform for our brand to survive, I hope, if that makes sense. And I wasn't really planning it as such, I don't think, but it's working out that way. Um, we, working at all the brands that I did and learning what I did was really great. Getting to then consult for all the companies that I did gave me the financial ability to start my store. The store now has created an opportunity mixed with consulting for brands to afford my opportunity to launch my product company. And there's a lot of little things that I had to do that I love all of it, but there's things that I like more than others. So yes, the retail business, there's certain things that just have to that our community needs. So our retail store we call Field Day Social because it's a
Yeah,
really a social setting. It's a safe place for our community. I feel like we have shuffleboard, we have ping pong, we have all the things that you can have a field day
that's
doing.
cool.
We have a pool table, but all of them are dual purpose fixtures. So we put product on it, and if you want to play it, we can clear it off and let you play it. And if not, you might find something you love on one of the tables. We have a bar, we have a barber shop. The bar is really kind of like a cool, not it's a full service bar, but we have 6 drafts on tap. We've got Tito's, Bullet, Woodford, Captain
Bro.
Morgan. Like we have one type of spirit for every category because we don't really want to be a full encompassing bar. So we have a little bit of that, little bit of this, little bit of that. We have a barber
That's
shop.
cool.
Um, yeah, I didn't think I'd be a bartender, but I am some days. When I went to fashion school, I didn't think I was going to end up
Did you have to get a
owning a
liquor
bar or
license?
being a bartender. We have a liquor license, and I am Bassett
Oh my
certified.
gosh.
Yeah,
What?
to make drinks.
Did
I
you
do
go to
sugar
the
rim.
bartender
I can
school?
do. No, you. There's an online course though
Oh
that you have
man.
to take to be able to serve people
I remember
responsibly.
I remember as a kid when I'd be sick in the summertime or not summertime, like during school, I'd be like watching TV. It's like there'd be a commercial for the bartending school. I always remember that. I was like, oh, that'd be the coolest freaking school to go to. Like, because it's
Yeah,
like for the deadbeat people that like had no
and
jobs and like are watching TV.
martinis on fire, that kind of stuff.
And then after that would be the Empire carpet commercial. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about right away. It's like I have that
it's in.
stupid
I
song in
just
my
heard the
head right
song.
now.
I heard the song. Yep.
558. I don't
Yeah.
even yeah, good
You
times.
did live in the Midwest.
For a little
Yeah.
bit.
So
And
we
I
have.
spent
So we
half.
have a. Sorry. I love this. Go ahead.
Oh no, I mean, like I grew up out here, but like my family was all from Chicago. Like we're always I was there like 5 times a year, bro. I was here for school pretty much, and then we'd be back in Chicago. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it there.
It's the '90s.
I'm gonna
All
live
those
there.
'90s '90s nostalgia. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess back to your original question. There's a lot of things that like have to happen for your business to survive, I think, and hopefully you like doing them. But there's some things that obviously you might not like, and there's definitely pieces of that, and then there's other things that I just like totally geek out on, like the buying and the merchandising and dressing
What do
mannequins
you
and all all
you
the
like
funny
that
things
part?
that.
That's the part you
Oh, I
like?
love it. Yeah, I love putting things
What don't you
together.
like?
I love. Um, I mean, there's not
Bartending.
much. There's not. No, I do like bartending because you get to connect with customers, and typically, like, when
Yeah.
you know, make a connection, it turns into business. That relationship just naturally turns into that stuff. Um, uh, I mean, the accounting part of it is not very
It
fun. The
sucks.
invoicing,
P&L.
the chasing,
Chasing
yeah,
money when they owe you, but they had no problem. Oh yeah, I know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
legal
That's all
side,
good.
the legal bullshit. I hate that stuff, dude.
Yeah,
Like
I
somebody
look
sent me
forward
a
to a day that our
contract the other
business is.
day, and I just like they're like, "Oh, here's a contract we want to do with you," and I just spent like the next like 3 hours like ripping it apart. And I'm like, "Who wrote this?" I'm like, and I sent it back, and I was like, "Listen, dude, like I'm not doing that." Like I'm like, "Here's what I'll do," and I've already spent time on it, and then they accepted it. I will do that. I was like, "All right, cool," because you sent me
Okay.
a bunch of information that did not even apply to our situation. But
Yeah.
I hate that,
Yeah.
dude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth on that side of it, and it's unfortunately, like, the stuff that's not right in front of you, so it's the stuff you have to do when you really shouldn't be working, I think, so maybe I'd enjoy it if it was, like, actually what I showed up to do, but it typically is the stuff that you have to try to play catch up
Well,
doing.
I think your style is freaking cool as hell, dude. Like when I and like you could like if you go to his, like you gotta check out his website. He'll tell you what it is in a minute. But like if you saw the quality of like the actual product, it's like it's amazing. Like honestly, I was like, holy crap! Like this is like figure like a Grayson. Like if you buy a Grayson product, like what that quality is, or like a high end product, but like not a super high end price. It's like it's hard to explain. Like you could tell the quality's there. You can see it.
Yeah,
It's just not gonna be like a
thank you.
$100 t-shirt, you know? Like
Thanks.
it's gonna
Yeah, I
be
mean,
affordable.
there's ways to do that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to, like, and I think unfortunately when you design something, there's an opportunity to just keep adding things and always
You should bedazzle it.
thinking about yeah, studded. No, I think that once you know, it's hard. You got to try to figure out how to it's a happy medium in costing and positioning yourself correctly where it's accessible, but also pulling out all the stops that you want to make it really special. So that's the fine line we're dancing. We're lucky to be working with, you know, a lot of really great factories and some that we've worked with in the past that are making all the best product in the space. So yeah, it's good stuff. And hopefully has a little bit of a different vibe and a different story than what else is in the market. We're hoping to go a little bit of
I
a
would
different
do it.
direction. Don't want to follow. So
That's cool. Well, where can people find you?
you can find us on Instagram at Field Day Social. That's kind of where we tell our stories. Our retail store, which is just a really awesome little men's general store. The tag there is Field Day Morris, Morris,
Oh, you have your own
and
thing? You have two different ones?
yeah, Field Day Morris is just kind of like a little bit
Oh,
more local, homegrown mom and pop shop that my wife and I own, and that's you know, certain happenings, but there's a lot of cool product and stuff that we show and talk about there. So
yeah.
if you want to follow our family, that you can do that there. And then fielddaysportingco.com. It's kind of a long domain, but fielddaysportingco.com is where the golf line has just launched, and you can get some of our merch. And we also sell a lot of other really great stuff. I mean, the store has given us the capability to kind of merchandise online what we love. So there's apparel every once in a while, all the third party tertiary kind of goods that we sell in different categories of our store, from grooming products to grill stuff to golf accessories. We just are trying to put stuff in front of you that we think you'll love, which is really it's just all the stuff that I love. My wife would tell you that my whole business is based upon things that I want for wholesale, which is not completely off beat. It's pretty close.
Well, it fills it in, right? Like the things you like some what you're selling too is what you like also, right? You just can't have like I don't make a shoe right now, but maybe one day I will, right? So you get to
Yeah,
like
well, I heard an amazing quote one time that was, "If you can't make it better yourself, go get that and sell that too." And so we make what we think we make the best, and then we
I love that.
sell,
That's a
you know,
great
the stuff in
quote.
the market that we think that is the gold standard kind of at the price points we're trying to sell. Akbar
No, I love
Chisti at
that.
Seamus would tell me, I mean, he makes fun of me every time we get on the phone and anytime he introduces me to anybody because he tells the story about our store. And then he says he sells e bikes. And the only reason he sells e-bikes is just because he wanted one. And it's true. But they're also really cool, and you should buy one too. It's kind of the philosophy.
I'm not gonna name the brand, but like it's a brand you worked for at one point, so let's put it that way. And the CEO told me we just want to be really good at the one thing we make, like really, really, really good at it, and then everything else, like we'll just partner with those brands that make a really good whatever that is too. And like instead of, and I'm like, that's so smart. Like that just
Yeah.
like don't reinvent
Yeah, I think it's
something.
hard to
Like
do
just
that for an
alive.
e-commerce
Yeah.
brand. I mean, I think it's really hard unless you're just constantly collaborating, but it's hard to do that if you're an e-com brand. In our sense, we get to like touch it, feel it, display it all day long too, which makes you love it even more and appreciate what makes it so great. So,
And if you're
yeah.
selling it too, you really stand behind the product. If you're like, oh yeah, that thing's legit. It's not just, a Bella Canva t-shirt with the
Yeah.
ball, the guy running on it.
And a torn out label. Yeah.
A torn out label and then a screen printed label inside. But anyways, well, thank you so much for being on the show. Um, Actually, our mutual friend Akbar was the one that introduced us, and he's like, "Bro, you gotta talk to Patrick." And I was like, "All right, cool."
Yeah.
So I'm so glad I got to.
Big
Again,
hugs
we
to
talked a
Akbar.
couple weeks ago. I talked to him. I think I'm having a call with him next week, actually. So,
Have you done the show?
he's
Has he done the
freaking.
show?
Yeah, he was on the show like 2 weeks ago, I think. So he's freaking
Is
smart,
it
dude.
is it up?
It's on the live stream. It's not on the. It's not on the.
Okay.
It's
I gotta go
on
watch it.
the. It's like a long one too. We freaking goofed off half the time.
Oh, he's easy to
I
talk to.
love the Pacific
We
North.
go on tears. We go on full
Really?
tears, and then like we both. Oh well, I don't normally, but he normally is like, okay, I gotta go. We gotta stop. Let's talk next week.
Like,
But
yeah,
we
he's
all
so
love this.
cool,
We're all in
dude.
this business for the same reason, so that's why it's easy to it's easy to go down the rabbit hole
Geek
because
out.
we're all
Yeah, geek out,
here
right? Geek out on the
for the
cool
same
stuff.
reason.
Yeah, like,
Yep.
yeah, I totally agree. Well, I think what your style is really sick, and I think your clothing looks impeccable. I mean, I know you're sending me some. I haven't gotten any yet. I'm telling you guys right now, but like what I've seen on his site, I was like, damn, dude, that's freaking nice. Um, you better hook me up with a
No
hat.
pressure or anything.
But
No pressure or anything.
um,
Yeah.
but if I ever go down I-80, I'll stop in Morris and come see you. And
Yeah, please stop by. I'm a total sitting duck, so I'm here every day. So please, Paul and everybody else, if you're on your way by Morris, Illinois, please stop and see the store and come have a
if
cold
you're in
beer and
Chicago,
hang out.
it's only 30 minutes from like it's like an hour from downtown, probably maybe an hour and a
Yeah,
half.
45 from Midway, and there's a lot of good golf
Yeah.
around us, so it's worth the trip for sure, whether it's for us or not.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and I will see you guys in the next episode.